Welcome to our conference, Creative Collaborations for the Future, Drivers for Interdisciplinary and Cross-Sectoral Innovations in Europe. My name is Wolfgang Gumpelmeier-Mach. I'm working as a project and communication manager for Creative Region Linz and Upper Austria. We boost, connect and evolve companies and people from the creative industries and creative regions. So we are also part of the COCO for CCI partnership consortium, which is organizing this conference. COCO for CCI is short for Collaboration Collider for Cultural and Creative Industries, and is a project funded with support from the European Commission through the Interreg Central Europe program. In the last 3 years with COCO for CCI, we connected creatives from Central Europe with companies in the manufacturing area and in the manufacturing business, so with other industries by implementing various activities. And the goal, or we were aiming to foster innovation processes in the respective sectors. We learned a lot about co-creation, cross-innovation, different design processes and approaches, creative tools and methods and formats, and of course try to create new business models and think out of the box. And we learned also a lot about current or future challenges of the companies. And today we want to share a few of these experiences with you in that context. But although our project closes now, we also want to look into the future, especially when it comes to designing new business models, products, services, and jobs with a focus on sustainability, inclusion, and knowledge sharing. And this is why we connected our topics with the new European Bauhaus initiative.
COCO for CCI stands for Cultural and Creative Cooperation Collider, and what you can see on the picture is actually a real collider. A collider is a term from physics, and this is a particle accelerator. So it accelerates particles to a very high kinetic energy and lets them impact on other particles. And the energy generated by these accelerations is higher than the sum of both parts. So actually 1 + 1 makes 3. And this is also what we want to do with our COCO for CCI project. We are following this idea by colliding or accelerating creative industries to impact on technology-oriented manufacturers.
Thank you so much for this really generous introduction. It's a great pleasure to be here, and particularly with this pioneering project. And I'm starting from the point of view of cross-domain collaborations, because really this is what this project is about, COCO for CCI, but also what the European Bauhaus is about, and also what the work that I have been doing for the last 10 years in feeding policy directly from grassroots experimentation from multidisciplinary communities. So I will start with the very famous moment when the new European Bauhaus was announced by President von der Leyen as a co-creation space where architects, artists, students, engineers, and designers work together. So this idea of multidisciplinarity, cross-disciplinarity, interdisciplinarity, or transdisciplinarity, whichever way you like to frame it, was highlighted as something that's really essential now and extremely important. But of course, evolving all kinds of ideas around the delivery and the methods. And currently, the partners are helping us in formulating the idea of the NEB lab. So obviously very relevant to the material that we've just seen. I always end on our community, and it's about the people on the ground, about the collaborations. And I always say that if every single person that we involve in these labs that we roll out across the European regions can take one step forward in their personal development as a result of this engagement, then we will have a phenomenal social transformation as a result. So we always say, we don't predict the future, we invent it. Thank you.
We are talking about the innovation here, but we have to understand what is the difference between invention and innovation and what comes in between. So usually when we come in the situation of being invited, or when we invite ourselves into onto a collaboration with a company or with the community, we usually encounter a very I would say spontaneous approach to innovation, and this is a situation where we are trying to bring all the stakeholders that are included into the innovation team, and we're trying them to unfold them, to open them, to create a safe environment where they can really lose themselves free. Because we strongly believe, and this is also what proves us right, that you cannot order an innovation. You cannot, there is no button you can press and the innovation will come up. The only thing what you can do is you can create an environment and proper conditions where the innovations can stem up. And this is what we're doing.
How might we design inclusive and open Roman spaces, or maybe how can we build how can we build creative cycles that ignite innovations? From my experience, I think it is important to build a situation that will empower people in given environments, especially when we are working in decentralized tribes, as I said before. Culture and the approach to work actually transcends locations. Move from theory and practice to thinking and doing. Learn as you go, but first build the idea that can actually tackle challenges on a personal level. Environmental philosopher Glenn Albrecht claims that we are on the verge of moving from Anthropocene to Symbiocene. So that the symbiosis, companionship and cooperation. So I think that my advice that I can share with you, and also my note to self, is to let's act like a tribe, which is now even more important than ever. Thank you.
First period of EU promotion, we started also with this thesis that creatives are innovation catalysts, as just mentioned beforehand, also because we also deeply believe that they're very good at changing perspective, that they're highly flexible and adaptive to context, needs and changes. They naturally move in networks and naturally move along different disciplines. So they are open to transdisciplinary work. They show a high fluidity of ideas, are original in what they create, are very sensitive for problems, and are actually capable to also redefine challenges that are given so that it matches the potentials that they can contribute throughout a process, and that they have this visionary striving so that can really imagine spaces that others may not be able to imagine. And in all those creative processes, they're always like result open, but yet solution oriented. So this is where we are also like orienting ourselves towards, to make sure that we raise potentials in the best possible ways, and at the same time making sure that companies, because we have co-financing partners, trust the process and open up for such collaboration.
ecological thinking to parametric design is why, I mean, I guess this term eco-parametric came about, because often we think of technology for its own sake versus in relation to natural behaviors. So this is, for example, some student project that we worked on. This was bamboo being folded according to magnetic fields, with the center of the magnetic points being natural. And this was a sort of piazza that used this steam bent timber. And this was a slightly more conventional project, but looking at the typical module size of a building. So to use off-the-shelf material, but to actually use this as a voxel and being able to dissolve this timber to create kind of a system rather than a form. I think this notion of system versus form is really important, because then you stop thinking in a top-down fashion and more in a bottom-up way. And so in that spirit, this is a project we're doing in Bacalar in Mexico. And basically we based it on the bending radius of timber. And if you were to unfold these things, they would all unfold into straight lines. And that's a really important concept, because before, when I was studying digital architecture, we were told, you could CNC everything. But when you CNC things, you create a lot of waste. You use plywood, which is already a processed material, and then you cut it and then you create waste. Whereas these are all bent digitally into straight elements. And so you actually use timber, the tree, straight out of what it is. I think when you minimize chemical processes, you actually can also help the life cycle assessment of materials. And yeah, so same, when you say I'm using wood, it might not be enough. You might need to dig into what wood, where did it come from, which forest did it come from. And so in this case, we're building a tower in Bali, and the client bought an old bridge, which is interesting. It's a colonial bridge from Indonesia, from a Dutch colonial bridge. He bought it and then took off all the timber, removed all the screws, and then built the tower on the left. And I think that's a really interesting, beautiful thing, that we don't have to actually think of projects as their end goal. You can think of your project will become someone else's project later on. And that spirit is a bit strange for architects, because we have big egos. As you know, we're known for this kind of character. And I think that's really something that needs to change in order for our profession to progress towards accepting things as systems that are beyond us.
I also think it was a really inspiring and interesting conference today, and very, many thoughts I have in my mind now, and we should definitely continue this at another point. And we are all open for further connections and collaborations. Feel free to contact us for discussing future projects or ideas to boost the culture and creative industry. Thanks for your participation and have a nice day.